Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. My name is Melissa.
I'm Ellie.
And I am very excited. We have a fun episode planned out today talking all about 2025. I almost said 2024, and I think that's going to probably be a thing until June, and then I'll finally catch up and start saying 2025. But we're going to be talking about reflecting on 2024 and our reads, and then talking about up and coming stuff for 2025. So definitely want to stay tuned. But before we do that, Ellie, do you have some Patreon?
I do. Number
news?
one, guys, join our Patreon. We're having so much fun over there. We are going through the Caraval series. We're on the Legendary book now. It is a blast. It is so fun. We do our Discord. We have bonus content. It's a blast. But I have some shout outs for those who did join. We have some newcomers. Welcome to Abby, Caitlin, and Jade.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining. And we asked and you delivered, you guys. Thank you so much. We had a ton of new reviews come through on Apple Podcasts, so thank you. We were going to read one of those in a second. But for those of you who haven't, if you have access to Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review there. You can leave them on Spotify as well, but you can only leave written runs on Apple Review. And don't forget to like and subscribe on all the platforms. We're at L.A.M.E Book Club Pod on everything. So thank you guys so much for being here. And let's go ahead. Ellie, you want to read the review?
Yes, without further ado, this one is titled Best Book Friends, 5 stars, from Rose9982. They say, I absolutely love this podcast. I absolutely thank you two so much for doing it. I have no one in my life that reads books, especially fantasy. R.I.P.
I know, honestly. But I get it.
Yeah. They said, I read Throne of Glass at 16 and had no one to squeal to about it. I thank YouTube algorithm every day for showing me your videos because I genuinely thought I was the only one to appreciate SJM. I now have you guys and Fantasy Fangirls, shout out to them because we love them too, to finally squeal with. Mondays are awesome now. Please never stop. P.S. This ties back to Melissa's Hear Me Out cake. They said Melissa's Hear Me Out cake has the components to actually make a whole person, which this is why I chose this review. That is disgusting. And it does. You're foul.
I am so gross. I hate me. Oh, man.
So thanks, Rose. And moving on from that, guys, if you want to head over to our website, it's lamebookclubpod.com. We have 2 merch items
Got them too.
for grabs. A sticker for your water bottles or whatever else you choose, such as this one, Melissa. Oh, nice. Love it.
Yes.
Join the club, and a tote bag. So if you want to carry your books around in 2025, please consider toting our tote.
Toting our tote. I use mine as a purse, so I just take it everywhere I go. Honestly, it is a game changer. There is so much room for fun activities in that bag. I can carry my books and my wallet and keys. It's incredible.
Wow. Anything you could possibly imagine.
Anything you can imagine is right in there.
Remind me, what's going on August 15th through 17th?
Nothing to know. Just kidding, Ellie. For anyone wondering, August 15th through 17th, Ellie and I will be in, drumroll please. Thank you. Ew. Don't, I take it back. St. Louis, Missouri for Enchanticon. Dun, 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 dun. We have a code. It's L.A.M.E 15. If you want to join us there, it'll get you 15% off your tickets. And we would love to see you guys hang out. There is a ball.
There's a ball.
A ball.
A
real life ball that we will be able to attend. I am so excited.
Yes.
It's fun. If you check it out online, I want to say it's enchanticon.com. I cannot remember the exact website, but if you just Google Enchanticon, it will come up and you can see what the itinerary is for all 3 days, the options. There's lots of panels, Q&As. Speaking of Fantasy Fangirls, they will be there as well. So lots of fun opportunities, people to meet, authors, other just book community, people that have a similar interest. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited.
Guys, Happy New Year. This is our very first episode of 2025. We're pumped. Woo! We have a lot of fun things lined up. I think we mentioned this in an earlier episode, but we are in this year going to be reviewing the highly anticipated Onyx Storm book. That's going to be at the end of January. As soon as it comes out, we're going to take it, a couple chapters at a time, deep dive it, involve our theories, involve the lore, really, really dive in. It's going to be so much fun. We are, of course, waiting for Sarah's every move. We have all of our notifications on. We will be the first, one of the first to tell you exactly when it drops. We're just girls. We're just humans. I'm not on my phone 24/7.
Amen.
We're going to deep dive Crescent City this year, including our theories on that and the lore there. We might go into From Blood and Ash, TBD. I'm having some... It's probably, and most likely. And... we're going to, again, give you all the hot goss from the book world per usual.
Yes.
So it's going to be a blast.
It's going to be a good year. I'm really excited.
It's going to be a good year. And man, let me tell you how good. The end of this episode, we're going to tell you predictions, but it also involves all the new books that are confirmed to come out in 2025. And I say it again later on, but this is a good year to be a reader. There are so many good books coming out. So
that is so true. 2025 is the year of the reader. I don't know what the Chinese calendar is going to say, but I'm changing it to the year of the reader because, man, authors are delivering. And the cherry on top will be if Sarah just somehow pulls a Taylor Swift and just releases the next book without telling anyone. We just wake up one morning and it's in B&N, just available. I would throw up from sheer excitement. I would absolutely throw up. And I would love it.
Yeah, I'd love it. SJM, if you're listening,
do
please. It. Okay, so to kick off the new year, we are going to talk about our new year book resolutions and our biggest book predictions. Yes. Number 1, our resolutions. Let's start. Step 1, reflection and self-discovery. I think we need to do some self-reflecting. How about you?
Yes, that is always a good place to start when we're talking about
always
moving forward.
Always a good place to start.
Absolutely.
How many books did you read last year, and what resonated the most with you?
This is such a loaded question. I read 61 books this last year.
Woo!
Which I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I realize that that's not like the most that I've seen. I've seen some people talk about how they've read like 150 books.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean. But to be fair, 61 with a full-time job, doing this podcast, and a whole family. Like, I have 2 young kids. I'm pretty impressed with myself. Not gonna lie. And that's also including, I took like 6 weeks off of reading in the summer. So that's a handful of other books that I could have included in that. But yeah, I'll tell you guys my secret. I don't sleep anymore. It's fun.
It's a little about me.
A little bit.
Nocturnal.
A little tidbit, not just nocturnal. I am an insomniac, diagnosed this year, so that's fun. That's how I got some good reading in. As far as like,
well, what books resonated with you? Yeah.
I'm realizing, and I'm sure this is going to come up again later, so I'm not going to deep dive too much into it, but I have to process books. I have a general feeling initially after I read a book, but I have to, I hesitate to rate anything on Goodreads right away because generally speaking, if I sit and think about it, my rating changes almost all the time. There's hardly any books where immediately the way I felt after the book is how I still feel about it 2-3 weeks later.
Amen. Yes.
And so that's part of something I learned about myself this year. And so knowing that, I think I'm taking that into account on the books I'm going to talk about that really resonated with me. The first one, I'm going through my Kindle because I'm only logged into Goodreads on my phone and I'm using my phone for the camera. So I read all of the Throne of Glass series this year, which is crazy to think that it hasn't even been a full year.
Yes. Going back through my list, I was like, that was this last year?
I know.
It felt like it was 5 years ago.
I know. And so, obviously, all of those books resonated so well, like with me.
Yeah.
But that also means that I read Crescent City this year. Because I read Throne of Glass before I read Crescent City. And it's crazy. It feels like I think it's just because of how much we talk about them on the podcast. It feels like I read these books 5 years ago. But no, it was all 2024. Yeah. And for the Crescent City, that's equally good and bad. My thoughts on House of Flame and Shadow have not changed since I finished reading it. That, if anything, it's gotten worse the more I talk about it. But I really liked the first 2 books. I very much enjoyed the first 2. I also read the Powerless series this year, which I've talked about. For me, I loved it. I know Ellie didn't. We're not going to talk about that any more than that, but I was a big one for me. And then I read the Caraval series this year, which I really enjoyed. I read the Lightlark series, which I also really enjoyed. We're going to talk about that series a little bit later on in this episode, so I'll say more about it then. But one of the standouts for me, though, and this is where I had to think about it, was Quicksilver.
Oh, shoot.
And because I know that there's been lots of talk about it online, and I get excited to read those when a lot of people are talking about it, because I'm like, okay, generally it's probably going to be a decent book, but I also get really nervous about it because I'm like, what if I don't like it? Am I missing something? Like, clearly so many other people liked it. Yeah. And I will say I had a really hard time getting into it. I didn't really get sucked into the story until, honestly, probably like 30 to 40% of the way through the book.
That's still good. That's not like, 60%,
that's almost half.
Which happens sometimes.
Yeah, but that's almost half of the book that I wasn't super committed to it. And so I really liked it. And I think I had a hard time with it at the end when I finished it because it took me so long to get into it. I did get really into it at some point, and I did really enjoy it by the end. And I love the way that it ended. I'm very excited for the second book in the series. I think it's set up to be, it's like a good cliffhanger, kind of. Lots of theories that can go on there. But the more I think about it, the more I realized, like, this is a really intricate book. Like, there was a lot of detail, and I actually want to reread it now that I can pay attention to a lot more of the details and focus on, like, I know what's going to happen. I'm not sitting here thinking, like, what's going to happen next.
Give me, because I have heard just some things. I try to stay away because I do plan on reading this. Give me, like, what is to be expected? What kind of tropes? Convince me on this, because you're halfway there right now.
I'm halfway there.
It wasn't on my top of my TBR, but now it's moving there with this explanation you're giving.
So it's not enemies to lovers. I'd say it's hate to love. But there's also, I don't know if this is a trope or not, there's like the quirky, there's a lot of humor, really like dry humor in it. It's like a quirky best friend kind of, that I really got a lot out of. I really enjoyed that. There's a really unique magic system in it.
I like that.
It's not like the most original ever, but it's very different than a lot of like the big books on Book Talk. A different take on Fae. So there is Fae, but the way that they are kind of talked about and described.
Because I feel like sometimes if a mythological creature or something that's already fantasy, it's made up, is established, and then someone like uses the same name but then changes their characteristics, I am not always the biggest fan of that. So did you like that aspect?
It wasn't, yes, but it wasn't so different to where it's like, these aren't Fae. Like, they're still similar to Sarah's Fae. Like, they're big, slightly larger than humans. They have the pointy ears. They have powers. They live forever. But, like, they're... this isn't really spoiling anything, but I'm just going to tell you, like, the age gaps are shocking. There's about, so where Rhysand was, like, 500 years old, the main guy in this one is, like, almost 1,800 years old.
Oh.
So, like, their lifespans are, I want to say longer, just
truly
because
forever.
of,
yeah.
Okay. Not forever. They definitely can die and stuff, but it felt like a little bit of just of a darker element of Fae than what Sarah had. And I'm honestly really just comparing it to Sarah's, what she kind of created her version of Fae to be.
Which unfortunately I think we just have to.
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was really good. And I liked the main girl. There's a part where she's kind of annoying to me, but I like her character arc. I feel like it was good, and there's a really good balance between fighting, but then also like just plot, and story. And so
you're selling me. You're selling me. So okay, what commonality do you think was like what was the common theme between all of these books for you that resonated? Is it just that you like fantasy and you've realized I like fantasy and I'm going to keep reading fantasy?
Well, I knew I liked fantasy, so that wasn't like, but yes, that, I mean, all of my favorite books that I read this year were fantasy books.
Yeah.
I did read other books that were very good. But if I
your
when I
favorites
sit
were...
back and think like, oh, what books did I love this year? I only think of the fantasy books that I read. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I will say my favorite, I read 48 books last year.
Okay.
And
hey, that's good for you.
I know it's a big deal for me because really I'm a 12 book a year girl. So this is a bigger deal. I really think the podcast keeps me more accountable because we have to keep reading to come up with more content to talk about. So that was good. I will say my favorites, the ones that popped out in my mind immediately, I loved the Divine Rivals duology. Can't believe that was just last year. I read both of them for the first time last year. That's crazy. The Crescent City series. Yeah, January last year.
Oh, okay. I read that because I read those in 2023. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It was early, but yeah, I mean, I felt like I read that decades ago.
Yeah.
The Crescent City series, again, same thing. House of Flame and Shadow, not necessarily it, but I did really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. The book Yellowface, man alive. I think I read that in March, and I have been raving about it ever since. It's not fantasy, it's thriller, but it is so good. Mm-hmm. It is so good. I just enjoyed it so much. Mistborn, which is truly fantasy, not romantasy. Love the magic system. Excellent. There's a book called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. That one's just fiction. Fabulous. It's about video game development and a whole plot within that. It's not as boring as that sounds. The only one left, Murder Mystery. Loved it. One Dark Window duology. Fantasy. Loved it. I'm just going to keep saying loved it after all of these. From Blood and Ash. And then my last favorite this past year was Behind Closed Doors, which is a very intense thriller. And what I found out about myself, for me, is that I'm more of a thriller girl than I've ever thought I possibly could be. And I'm realizing I really like fast-paced and I like major plot twists, which thrillers often do. And sometimes fantasy can be that too. But it tends to be more like straightforward and predictable, even though there could be twists in there. You often like see it coming for the most part. And I value definitely in fantasy, like the depth and world building. That's what draws me in and keeps me there because I feel like I put so much work into that book that I live there now. And the storytelling is always excellent. But I think a palate cleanser of something fast and shocking is a must for me.
A palate cleanser, that's something that I know I've said this before, but that is definitely something that I've learned about myself for sure this year too. I've kind of known that, but I think I really pushed the limits with some of myself and like some of my fantasy reads this year. And I read too many fantasy books in a row. And it got to the point towards the last couple that I read that I really think I would have enjoyed them more if I had either taken just a break or read something else in between. So I really like shot myself in the foot when it came to reading those. I was just excited to read them. But I actually feel the opposite that you do about like I enjoy a good thriller. Don't get me wrong. But I feel the opposite. I feel like thrillers are usually way too straightforward. And it's so easy to see what's coming. And like I'm expecting a way more grand reveal that you usually get in fantasy books. And then I'm not disappointed, but so like for example, I read that book None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell not too long ago. I loved it. Like it was very good, but the whole time I'm sitting here trying to guess what I think is going to happen, and I'm guessing these like outlandish scenarios, and that's not ended up being like, oh well,
a pretty mild situation.
Not mild, because I mean it was kind of dark, but yeah, like the end.
No, mild
of it,
as in like in levels of plot twist. Yes, like it wasn't like holy. It was just like, oh yeah, okay.
It's like what I would have assumed was gonna happen if I wasn't trying to guess is how it ended. And I'm sitting here being like, oh, they're gonna die, she's gonna have magic, which I'm like, which doesn't even make sense because there's not magic in this book. No,
not
I'm just kidding.
Lisa Jewell.
No, I'm just kidding. But like I was just sitting here, I'm like, oh, this person's not actually going to be dead and all, you know, all these things. And like, that's like not at all how it ended. And so I was like, oh, like it was great. It still was a good book, but I had my fantasy goggles on when I was trying to guess what was going to happen. And that's how I realized.
You got to take them off.
Yeah. Well, and so that's how I realized that I'm like, okay, these are great palate cleansers, but I feel the opposite. I feel like fantasy or thriller books are generally way more straightforward, which makes sense to me though, because they don't have the benefit of being able to make up whatever they want with like magic and another realms and stuff, because they're still a lot more realistic than fantasy. Yeah. So it can't be as grand when it comes to plot twists and stuff. But
fair point. And I will also mention that if any of these books sounded interesting to you, obviously they made our top lists, so please read them and let us know. But if you're also like, none of those sound amazing and I need to find a book that I know I'm going to love, I have a little tip for you, and I've mentioned this once in the past. But if you go to Goodreads and you go to a book that you were like, I hated this. Truly, I feel like this works better than like, I loved this. Who else loves this? You got to go to the ones you hate. And you see someone else who one-starred it for the exact same reason you would have one-starred it. You go to their page and you find what they 5-star. And you'll find that your similarities could be exactly aligned. And I have found quite a few that I've loved that way.
Yep. So that's really good advice.
We've done our reflection and self-discovery. Let's go to step 2, goal setting and change. Tell me the reading goals you want to set for yourself in 2025, and is there anything you'd like to do differently than last year?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. I actually want to read less this next year. Love it. I don't think I didn't push myself by any means to read, and I didn't like miss out on anything just so that I could read. But I don't think I was as present as I could have been. Like, there were times where I could have been playing with my kids and I chose to sit and read instead. And I want to be a lot more aware of that this year. And I think part of the reason why is because I set a goal for myself on Goodreads. I mean, my goal was 50. So like I clearly passed that. But I don't know. I think I just want to take my time a little bit more, because I'm generally a fairly quick read. But I think if I slow down, I'm going to pay a lot more attention to the plot and details. Yeah. And I'll be able to theorize a little bit better when it comes to like unfinished
maybe reading
series.
To enjoy more rather than reading to get it done.
Yeah. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I definitely read to enjoy. But I do think that there was a little bit of a stigma and like a pressure that I put on myself to finish. And I also, like, I picked up a new hobby this year of crocheting, and I haven't picked up my crochet hooks in a couple months because I had this schedule of these books that I wanted to finish. And shout out to myself, not only did I finish all the books, I finished them early. But I haven't picked, but all that, like, I've sacrificed other things in order to do that though. So like, yeah. I just think I want to find a better balance this year.
I actually really like that goal, because I think that prioritizes health. And often I think you might not hear that on like book podcasts specifically, because we're here to talk about, what'd you read? And let's talk more about it. But absolutely, there is a balance of like, hey, I want to be more present and not put my nose in a book 24/7. And that's totally fine. You can be a 5 book a year girl. You can be a 100 book a year girl. And that's all good. Yeah. For me, I think based on my prior reflection, I may try to do in every other situation where it's like thriller, fantasy, thriller, whatever. But then that gets hard with like series books, because you definitely don't want to. I mean, I don't have a problem, but
you're crazy.
For the sake of the podcast, I probably shouldn't stop a series to like do a palate cleanser. Also, enough with historical fiction. I'm over it. I'm not trying again. What came to my mind was the National Treasure quote from Benjamin Gates, who is like, when he's talking about the iron pen, he's like, it was iron, it was firm, it was mineral. No, it was adamant, it was resolved. I am resolved. No more historical fiction. We are done.
That's so funny with how much you loved Divine Rivals, that to now hear you say, I'm sick of this genre.
No, and I'll tell you what book did me in. It's All the Light We Cannot See.
Oh,
done. Don't even come at me with the Pulitzer. I don't want to talk about it. I hated it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. I have also found that since I've started reading, I have honestly lost so much interest for TV, which I would mark in the pro column. Yeah. Because the book gives me so much more than a show could, and I am so much more interested. So I'm going to keep going down that road and replace nighttime TV for reading, hopefully.
Oh, I love that.
Because guess what? It helps sleep, because you're not looking at is it the blue light? White
I don't know,
light,
because I
green
read
light,
on a Kindle, so
the
I
light?
don't think that helps too much.
No, that one is okay. We'll get back to that. It helps with mental unloading, and guess what else it does? I looked it up.
It reduces Alzheimer's.
Yes, which Grant
I
calls
read the
it
notes.
Alzheimer's, and I am beside myself.
I
Right.
change it up. Sometimes I call it that. Sometimes I say it correctly. Sometimes I make up my own word for it. So
As long as you
who knows?
say it incorrectly as a bit, and not like Grant, who's like, "Yeah, he's suffering from Alzheimer's," and I'm like, "You got to stop that."
you
wait.
gotta stop.
Now the subject has switched from that to you,
Yeah.
and how wrong you are. Okay, step 3. Habits.
Except before we go on to step 3, I also
Please.
can confirm that if you are sick in the head like me, it does not help you sleep. So
Yeah, it depends on the book. If you're like,
No,
I have to read another chapter.
it doesn't matter about the book. It's more just the fact that I'm just awake no matter what. It doesn't put me to sleep.
My poor friend.
I
Maybe
know.
You need,
I'm going to the doctor. It's fine. Okay, sad me's moment is over. We're going.
everyone at once. Oh, all right.
Yeah, no.
Step 3: habits. What habits can you form to get to your goals? For me, I said I need to be so much better about leaving my phone as far away from me as possible because, good Lord, the scrolling, just like 2 chapters, and then I'm like, did someone say my name? Did someone text me? No? Perhaps I'll go on Instagram for 6 hours. I'm done with it. So that's my goal. Reduce screen time.
Oh man. That is a good one. I think that's helpful just in general, to keep my phone as far away from me as possible, regardless of whether I'm reading or not. I want to set some boundaries around when I read, because the way I operate right now is just because generally have so much going on, I just try and read at any moment I can. So I have 5 minutes where I'm not doing anything. I'll pick up my book and just read as much as I can and then put it back down and then come back to it later. And one that's kind of hard because depending on like where I'm at in a book, if there's a lot happening, to just like keep picking it up and stopping in the moment, like that, it takes away from the emotion that you're supposed to feel reading it.
Yes.
But also it's just not, I don't feel like that's healthy. I feel like I'm living my life for the moments where I can read. And if I just set some very intentional, like, okay, like every weekend, mommy gets 2 hours to herself so she can read, like, and that's, and I'll like save some of my reading for that time. And then, or like at night before going to bed, like you said, like, which I already do really unintentionally. Instead of reading or watching TV to fall asleep, I'll read. And like, so like if I just very clearly have some time set up where it's like outside, unless it's like a random 45 minutes, it's not like, not just like a few minutes here and there, outside of these times that I have dedicated to reading, I'm going to do my best to not pick up a book just to try and read. Just like, I feel like a starved animal that had found like crumbs on the floor. That's like just for like a couple minutes of reading time.
Just a couple words. Just a couple more words.
I just want to finish the page.
Oh my God.
All right. I don't want to be that next year. So
that's fair. I also saw, I cannot remember what celebrity it was, but it's one I think I liked because I kept this locked in. But they were told by their mom, no matter where you go, at any point, bring a book with you. So if you're going to school, if you're going to work, if you're going, like, I don't know, to the DMV, bring a book with you.
I was just going to say, any time you have an appointment, because 9 out of 10 times the person you're waiting to see is going to be late. So you have time to sit and read.
Yeah. And so I loved that because there's often times where I'm sitting and I'm waiting and I'm like, I'm just going to scroll on my phone. So you just pull out your book. You have some time right there. And then shameless plug again for the totes you could be toting around. If you need something to hold that little book in 2025, lamebookclubpod.com. So step 4, challenge. Here we go. We have a fun little challenge for all of our lame listeners. This is called the Valkyrie challenge per us and SJM. And this challenge is strictly this: let's move for 30 days and let's read for 30 days. One chapter, half a page, whatever, a walk, a simple, elliptical 45-minute a simple.
Yes, but, I was just about to say a casual 800 steps
3
on
hour
the
gym
Stairmaster
situation.
Yeah.
No, but just any movement for 30 days straight. Could be active recovery, could be an intense workout, and any reading for 30 days straight. We're going to post something on Instagram to give you a little like check these boxes if you did it. And if you did, we'll shout you out on our February episode whenever the 30 days is over, and let us know. We're super excited to do this with you. Let's move to book predictions, the fun part of the episode. What is on our bingo card for 2025? This will include ACOTAR spoilers, the next portion. Before we talk about each book, I'll tell you what kind of spoilers it's going to include. So if you haven't read the ACOTAR series, skip ahead a bit. Number one, of course, Sarah's going to drop the next SJM book, the next ACOTAR book. And this is confirmed by Bloomsbury for sometime after February 28th. Whoa. Predictions?
When?
Yeah. I don't know. I looked it up and it's recent.
Wow.
But so sometime after February 28th can literally be up to 2026. We don't know.
But that's just so
not
random.
Now is what we know.
Why would they give like the starting countdown as the end of February?
I have no idea. What if it's March 1st? We don't know.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, why? That's such a random day to be like, just any point after this random day.
I know.
Like, okay.
And it's like, it's not like, oh, it's on or near. It's after. It could be any time after. It's wild. But
crazy.
I would assume they're not going to string us along too much after that. And SJM has talked about writing her next ACOTAR book. We know it's probably going to be this year at some point. So
hopefully.
Predictions. This is for you. Do you have predictions?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I need you to lock in real quick.
My bad. Predictions? So, gosh, do I have predictions? There's so many. Give me your
top three. Just give me your top three.
Okay, well, I don't even know. Okay, here's one. All right, I don't think Az and Elaine are gonna end up together like everyone else thinks so. I haven't decided if I do think she's gonna end up with Lucian or not. It's just strictly based on them being mates. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it will be Elaine and Azriel. I know that there's been some like hinting towards like attraction on both ends. Mm-hmm. But I cannot accept a world where Sarah writes these stories only for all three sisters to end with the three brothers. Like, that just feels way too cliche. And I know. I don't care if all signs are pointing towards that being the end game. I can't wrap my mind around her doing that. And so for that reason alone, I'm going to say that's not how it's going to end.
That's fair. Real quick. I was also told moving forward that all the books would be meshed worlds. And so moving forward, you need to read the Crescent City books, just really the Crescent City ones, in order for everything to be cohesive, because we're getting the multiverse situation. But I know that you and I talked about Sarah saying the opposite at one point. So do you know if she 180'd her plan? Have you heard about that?
So I've seen people talking about it on the internet, but that's it. I haven't seen anything from Bloomsbury or Sarah herself saying, because I read a quote from Sarah directly saying that she wants, yes, there might be some crossover, but she wants all her books to be able to be read independently of one another and for them to still make sense. So while you might have a better understanding of some of these situations or characters if you've read Crescent City, it will still make sense for these books if you haven't. And then once you go back and read them, everything's going to come together and you'll be like, oh, wow. So I don't know if she's changed her mind. I haven't seen anything where anyone credible has said that. I've only seen other people, other random individuals saying that online. So I'm taking that with a grain of salt, only because Sarah herself has said the opposite. If it was just people online this whole time talking, I'd be like, yeah, sure, I believe it. But until I hear Sarah or Bloomsbury or like someone say that, I'm gonna be like, okay, sure, maybe. But honestly, it doesn't matter for me because I've read them all.
Because people are like, no, she's already written it this way, or like she's really written it like it's leading up to this. But until Sarah herself writes it in cement, anything can happen, and that is what I stand by. So do you have more predictions? Because I can list mine real quick.
Yeah, I really like what you said about, I think the Dust Court is going to, I don't know how, but the Dust Court is going to be confirmed and play a huge role in this next book, moving forward even. Crochet is going to be the big bad.
Yep.
That's a prediction.
That's 3.
This isn't a prediction. This is more. This isn't a prediction. It's just a desperate want. Please, Sarah. Please make Lucian the bad guy. I need.
Yes, please.
I need a bad guy that I can buy into, and boy, can I buy into his.
And it needs to be someone I liked.
Exactly.
In order for me to be truly hurt, and that's what I want is the pain.
I need emotional damage, and Lucian being the big bad with Crochet will give that to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, my predictions: Az will find his mate. The Dust Court, like you said, will be revived. Eris's redemption is going to happen, but I don't know if that's going to be this next one. I want all of it to happen in one book, but I know it might be a few. Elaine will finally get a backbone / story. POVs. Do you have a prediction on the POV?
Well, so far it's mostly been from the Archeron sisters. So, but based on Silver Flames, we got about equal Nesta and Cassian. So.
We've been told Nesta's story isn't over, so I'm curious if we're going to get Nesta's POV.
Maybe for a chapter or two, but I don't think we'll get as much as we did. I think, if anything, it might be like a Silver Flame scenario where it was still mostly Feyre, but we got a little bit of Nesta, Cassian, and Rhys. But I mean, so just following that pattern, I think it'll be Azriel and Elaine being the two main point of views. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of Lucian thrown in there, just since he does have some skin in the game, a little bit being her mate.
Some skin in the game.
Yeah, all right. But yeah.
Okay. Next we have the much anticipated book, Onyx Storm. Here's where all of the Empyrean spoilers are coming in. This book will release January 21st. And if you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot and I need to do a reread, but now there's no time, fret not. Your besties have got your back. The week before the release, we are going to put an episode out recapping both books. So you can just listen to it on your drive. You don't have to do a quick read. You don't have to look up any, quick, give me the summary. We got you. We're going to give you the characters. We're going to give you their signets, the dragons, and the main theories to make sure that you're fully prepared to ace that Basgiath test. On to predictions.
We're so awesome. I'm just kidding.
Aren't we? On to predictions. For now, and here's where, again, Empyrean spoilers are going to enter the chat.
Yeah.
I think Xaden will, of course, be cured, or we'll find out that Venin aren't necessarily evil. Peep our episode, Dragon Secrets That Will Transform Onyx Storm, that dropped November 25th. If you want more lore on that prediction, Melissa goes into it very well.
Thank
you. I think Violet's second signet is going to be Amplifier. I will hear no slander. The 7th breed of the dragons are going to make more of an appearance. Turns out they're not extinct. They're just in hiding or somewhere else.
That's a theory. That it's not confirmed.
No, prediction. These are predictions. AKA and Darna's family is on the Isles, is my guess. And Xaden's mother will also be found on the Isles.
Yep.
Your move.
Well, those are pretty much everything. That's all from my November 25th episode talking about. I really think this is my prediction for this series. I don't think it's for this book, but I think the dragons are going to end up being there's going to be a dragon civil war eventually. And I do think that we're going to get a cure in this book. And the reason I think that is because Rebecca said that she is writing her books as on a W kind of scale. So the first book ended on a high, kind of. We found out Brendan was still alive. Great. That's an exciting cliffhanger. And Iron Flame ended on a low because crap, Xaden is now Venin. So we know that book 3 is going to end on some kind of similar high. And so I think that it's either going to be Violet, the ending sentence is Violet's going to be and I know how to cure him, or he will be cured or something. That is going to be how this one ends. And I think a cure being involved is 100%. I don't think that's going to be dragged out more than a book. I
moved your sentence to my bingo card as well, for the ending sentence to be, and I found the cure. Something along those lines.
And that is the cure or
Mark our words.
And so that it's going to be an exciting cliffhanger end. I will say I love this for her, but I'm sad for me. But Rebecca posted something about how she has, she not too long ago finished this book, and then she has other books to read, and she has she's changing up her methodology with writing books so that it's a lot more honestly just manageable. Yeah, and she says she's worked herself in the ground the last 2.5 years, and I applaud her for having self-awareness and doing what she needs to do. But I'm so sad because that means it's probably going to be like 2 or 3 years before we get another book in this series. And so especially if that is how it ends, with it being like, and at that moment Violet realized what the cure was, or like that this is the cure, and then for us to just like end on that, I'm like, nah. But
yeah, so cherish this one. Hold it close to your heart.
I also think that there's a really good chance that he will be cured before the ending, and some other secret is going to be how it ends.
Ooh.
But I don't think she'll drag out the cure portion of this for more than a book. I really don't. And I think that's just because I don't see the Venom being the end game big bad. There's going to be something else. I really feel it in my bones, and I really think it's the Dragon Civil War. Tensions are already starting to rise between those that stayed with the Empyrean and those that left with the Revolution. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that, especially with like what Ellie was saying, like with the Seventh Breed actually being on the Isles and not extinct, the only people that knew that were the Elders. And I think that's going to piss off a lot of dragons. They're going to be sick of all the secrets and the hierarchy. And it's that tension that's already starting to form is just going to be palpable and just start to build throughout this book and maybe even the next. And that last book is just when it's going to be the explosion of all dragonkind losing their ever-loving marbles and just being like so sick of the way things are. And that's going to bleed into like Navarre changing its opening its borders and changing the way it is.
I can see it, and I love it, and I'm hoping for it, and we will see.
We shall see.
Mark our words, though. The cure will be found in this book.
Amen.
Hunger Games. Guess what? We're getting Sunrise of the Reaping on March 18th. That is,
I'm so excited.
Here's where I'm going to say it again.
Mitch.
It's a good year to be a reader.
It is. Hey, Mitch. Hey,
I know.
Mitch. Especially if you were a tween and read all of these books in middle school to now finally get Hey Mitch's backstory, the juicy story that everyone's wanted since the beginning of time.
Yes.
Is here.
Oh, we're so excited. Okay, so again, if you didn't hear Melissa just now, this is going to be Hey Mitch's backstory, and we are pumped. The prediction that I have for this one actually comes from the Reddit user Carousel of Magic, and I could not agree more with this. So Suzanne Collins does not seem like the type of author who would just milk the franchise. So with the announcement of Sunrise of the Reaping and it revolving around the 50th game, which is the second quarter call, I am thinking we may not get the straightforward Hey Mitch arc most are expecting. What?
Come again?
I know. Come again?
Carousel of Magic?
She stated in the announcement about delving into propaganda and the power it has over the many controlled by the View. I'm already chills already.
This is too real,
theory,
actually.
I know. My theory is the story could follow a career district and how propaganda affects them with Hey Mitch's story intertwined.
Wow.
Please.
That would be cool.
I'm going to read the heck out of this book.
I'm going to read the heck out of it no matter what, but I am very excited for the possibility of this being... Because that, honestly, this makes way more sense than just straight up getting Hey Mitch's backstory. As much as I would love that, I would eat up a story of this with then like throughout learning of the propaganda, it like we get bits and pieces of Hey Mitch's story that like are somehow connected, intertwined with that. Oh,
it's gonna be amazing.
Kiss.
What a twist it would be. And okay, next book, Lauren Roberts' Fearless is expected to drop.
I had to move the mic because I knew it'd be too loud.
April 8th, 2025. So here comes the spoilers for the Powerless series ahead. The people are speaking, and they are concerned.
No,
they're
nervous. Not concerned. They're not nervous.
Hear me out. They sure are. How is Lauren going to end this series? This is the third and final book.
Yeah. She's not choosing Kit.
Hear me out. If Peyton chooses Kit, she, and I mean Lauren, would have destroyed everything she's built. Everyone knows Peyton and Kai are endgame. We've all seen it. We feel it. We know it. You can't switch the love interest up on us now. Book 3 doing that? Nah. That would destroy the whole thing. But if she does, hold on. I fear that will tank the series. But if she chooses Kai, people are predicting that Kit is going to end up being a butchered character by becoming the villain, and they don't want that either. It has to really go one of two ways. And honestly, I don't see it going another way other than Kit being the butchered character.
He's not going to be a butchered character. He is going to be a good villain because we like him in book 1. He's obviously not the one, but we like him. He's a good guy. And all of book 2, every chapter from his point of view was him turning into that. Honestly, his dad, a little bit, like, kind of like, you see the wheels are turning, you see his hurt and betrayal that he felt, and like the sadness over losing his dad, even though he wasn't close with them and didn't agree with a lot of the decisions he made. He was still his father. He wrestled with it. His villain arc is beautiful. He obviously is going to turn into the bad guy, and I
Some people
love it.
have really
Some people
attached to him, though.
Some people need to reread the series then, because he's not the one you're supposed to be attached to, but you're supposed to like him enough that when he becomes the villain, it hurts. And that's the best kind of villain, i.e., let's go back to ACOTAR, why I want Lucian to be the villain. We like him, but we've also seen his character kind of tumble a little. So we want, like, that is a good, you're invested in it. I will hear no other disagreements with him being a butchered character becoming a villain. 8,000,000% disagree. He will be, because there's no shot that she's going to actually choose him. She might once again pretend to pick him like she did in book 1, but really there's no way her and Kai aren't endgame. That is the endgame, and Kit is going to be the villain, and it's going to be really hard. It's going to be hard for Kai to try and fight his brother. It's going to be hard for Peyton to fight him, and it's going to be hard for us to see a character that we liked become the villain, but that's what makes it so good.
Well,
and
do we even need to read Fearless then? We know what's going to happen.
I don't know how it's going to happen, so I still want to read it, but I know it's going to happen, and I'm very excited for it.
She's passionate. We can tell. All right, Lightlark.
One sec before we do that too. The cover of Fearless is a crown. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of moment where she and whatever. I'm done. I'm excited. The cover of Fearless is my favorite so far, though.
I also saw a theory someone had, and this can fall into predictions, I guess, that Lenny, who is the guard, who turned, rebel, whatever, is actually also, what do they call it? A mind seer, a mind reader of some sort.
Oh,
and
I hate that.
He keeps calling Peyton princess because he knows what's going to happen.
Ooh, so that'd be interesting.
Fact. Okay, so Lightlark, big surprise. Alex Aster revealed that what was once her 2-book deal turned into 3 books, became a 5-book series. So right before she released the 3rd book, revealed that actually we're going to make this a 5-book part. Everybody was kind of not the most pleased, I'd say, is the initial reaction, but people like Lightlark, and so if you can make the story go on, make it go on. And guys, I'd love to give you my...
Only if you can make it go on well.
True. I'd love to give you my prediction on the 4th book in the Lightlark series, which is to come out in 2025, but I haven't started this journey yet, so I'm going to take off my headphones so Melissa can weigh in, and you give me the thumbs up when they can come back on.
Okay. All right, so here we go, everyone. I read all 3 books, and here's my ultimate thought process is that this should have stayed 3 books. I think there's a lot of potentially good story here, but book 3 was my least favorite of the books so far. I love Grimm, and I love Oro, which is why I love this series. I love that it's like truly a love triangle, and you genuinely like all of the you really like. I mean, obviously, I favor the morally gray, dark-haired MMC. I think most people do, but Oro is great, and I really liked him in the 1st book, and so I love that. But I'm concerned with where the storyline is going to go, because the first half of Skyshade, Isla drove me absolutely insane. She was so mean to Grimm for I don't want to say no reason, because Grimm made a few mistakes, but every decision he made, truly, in his mind, he was doing what he thought was best. Was it the right answer? No. And we know that. Does he deserve to have some sort of period of time where we all knew that was the case? Yes. She deserved to give him some crap for it. And honestly, a little bit of a cold shoulder. But she did it for way too long. way too long, and it got irritating. But the second half was really interesting. I liked the idea of Lark being alive, and then now I think it's going to be exciting that we go to the portal to their old world. I'm curious to see what that's going to do, but I don't know. I think it would have been best if it had just ended at 3, honestly, and she just picked one of the boys and lived her happily ever after life. But we'll see. I am excited for where this is going a little bit. I'm hesitantly excited, let me say, because I am, with the way book 3 was finished, I'm a little concerned with character development. But I think there's enough plot-wise with how she ended it for us to maybe get for sure another book. I don't know about 2. We'll just have to see where this next one goes. But regardless, I like it. I'm excited. And Ellie, thumbs up. You can come back on now.
Is this the first time you think the people who've watched our episode have seen my ears?
Potentially.
That's all I thought about the whole time is, man, my ears are really sticking out today. Okay.
They're here to play.
So lastly, let's talk about a book that I'm personally predicting will make it big this next year. Metal Slinger. I have seen the name thrown around our book community, but I haven't seen a huge online presence for it yet, which is kind of shocking because amongst the romantasy book community, it's really loved, which is, I would think it'd make it to Bookstagram by now, but I don't know. So it's high up on my TBR, but I have not read it yet. So here is just the summary, and let me know if you think this is interesting too. Maybe we'll cover it someday if it makes it bigger. Bryn has spent the better part of her life waiting for the chance to attend the annual market hosted by the Kenta, the very same people who exiled the Alaha to live a life over the sea. A rite of passage for all young guards. She's not sure what to expect from it, but breaking a century-long peace treaty certainly isn't on her map. Neither is the encounter with an enemy soldier. Returning home to Allah, she's confronted with the aftermath of the day's events. The future is uncertain as the threat of hunger looms over the people. With rumors of a growing rebellion, Bryn and her closest friends promise to stick together. When an unexpected visitor arrives, Bryn's loyalty will be tested as she learns of a world of magic and treachery. Once her enemy, always her enemy, right? But the dark, knowing eyes of a stranger make her question everything.
Ooh.
I'm in. Sold.
So
sounds good.
Here's where I'm at. The story sounds intriguing enough, but here's where I am my own enigma. Because I, on one hand, hate when fantasy characters' names are too hard to pronounce. It drives me up a wall. I'm like, just make it a normal name. Don't. But then we get a book where they give it a normal name. It's because I know a couple Bryns in real life that I'm like, I can't picture this character because I know too many Bryns.
Fair.
So
Very
that's
fair.
where I'm an enigma, and I it's a me problem. I understand that, but regardless, I'm gonna read the book and I'm excited about it.
No, the #1 review on this book, like it's really well rated. I think it's like 4.5 stars right now on Goodreads, which is pretty
Maybe it's
high.
my next read.
I know. And the #1 review was like, I have not gone a day without thinking about this book. It is the best book I have ever read.
Wow.
And boy, oh boy, those are some big words. And
I know.
It's piqued my interest. I want to see what's up.
I want to go to their Goodreads and see how they rated other books that I've read.
Ain't
to
that
see
the
if
truth?
That's going to be...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways.
Do you have any up-and-coming predictions? And that's where we're going to end this episode.
So, kind of. It's not really... I guess it's a similar scenario. I've definitely seen the books being thrown around. But I don't feel like it's gotten the attention that it deserves. And that's the Kindred's Curse saga. The Spark of the Everflame.
Yes.
Is book 1. But I recently, and by recently I mean like 2 days ago, just finished book 3. And if I also, not on my bingo card for 2024, was reading a book that was longer than Assassin's Blade, but here we are. Book 3 in this series is over...
Blade?
Sorry, Kingdom of Ash.
Really?
The book 3 in this series is over 1,000 pages. It's like...
Was it worth it?
So I have my own personal thoughts on it. Book 1 and 2, no crumbs. Ate it up. Loved it. I do think book 3 could have been better if it was a little bit shorter. I personally feel like there was some fluff, and quite honestly, I don't love the character arc of the FMC and or lack thereof. She's definitely like grown a little bit, but I don't think she's grown enough for how many pages of this book that these 3 books that I've read. Combined, it's over 2,000 pages, all 3 of these books. So there's a lot of story there, but I'm not going to make any final judgments until book 4, which is the final book, comes out. And I don't know when that is. The author has even said she doesn't know when it's coming out yet. So we have some time to dwell on it. However, it's good. It's not as good as some other fantasy series that I've read, but I do think it's good enough to have more conversations about than there has been. And so that is one that I would like to see pop off this year, mostly too because I would love to talk more about it, like with other people that have read it. And I'm fortunate enough, I do have a couple of friends that have read it, and that like we can talk about it, but I'd love to get some other outside opinions on what either they think is going to happen or some things that have happened that I didn't like. I would love to hear like if they did like it, like why, lots of growth opportunities there, I think, for myself, but I'm excited about that book series.
I'll have to check that one out too. All right. I hope you've walked away with a lot of books to add to your TBR. I've hoped you walked away with, yes, we're going to participate in the Valkyrie Challenge with the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. And drop in the comments your favorite reads from 2024 and any book predictions that you might have for 2025. And we will see you guys next Monday.
Bye.